But I said Marco, but John McCain and several others have also shown, Charlie Dent, have shown the courage.
Yeah, and it's been fascinating to see Donald Trump's own military branches individually coming out one by one. Not Donald Trump himself, but individual, whether it was the Coast Guard yesterday, the Commandant of the Marine Corps before that, coming out individually and saying, well, if the Commander-in-Chief's not going to say it, we'll just go out and say it ourselves. And you're right, I think Susan Bro was that unifying voice, Heather's mom yesterday. I was reminded a little bit of Charleston 2 years ago when we talk about this grace. Where do these people find this grace? And when you had the families of the victims at the Emanuel AME coming out face to face with the young man who killed their family members and saying, we forgive you, we have to heal. Healing is more important than our anger. And you heard that from Heather's mom yesterday, and it took your breath away.
This is something, Gene, that we did see. So glad Willie drew a straight line from what happened in Charleston to what happened here, because you did see this amazing grace that actually, again, pulled the community together. Isn't it amazing that instead of having tiki torches,
they had candles.
These people had candles.
Big difference.
That was, as our preacher would always tell us, at First Baptist Church in Pensacola, hold the candles high and punch holes in the darkness. And you just may see the beginning of that happening right now.
Yeah, it was very moving, and it was. I thought yesterday, especially Susan Bro's eulogy, began to redeem what has been just a shameful chapter in the history of our government, at least. And
it's not over, but she's certainly a sign of light.
And a shameful chapter in the history of this country, in the history of the presidency. But Mike Barnicle, the business community just responded almost immediately. There was a domino effect, and as the New York Times said, even one of Donald Trump's closest business allies, Stephen Schwartzman, saying enough, and wrote a statement for the Business Council saying, we don't want to be associated with racism, bigotry, hatred, and disbanded the council. Of course, the president, showing absolutely no class, rushed to tweet that he was disbanding a council that had already disbanded itself.
You know, Joe, in these darkest hours of these truly dark days, America comes out like the sunshine comes up every morning. It comes out from the pulpit of that church yesterday where a victim's mother speaks as eloquently and as meaningfully as she did about the death of her daughter, something I don't think any of us can really comprehend as parents.
I can't imagine it.
It comes out when members of the American military issue statements in support of what this country is all about, equality, lack of prejudice. America comes out when you see the Business Council saying, this is just a bit too much for us, and they issue statements. It does not come out, unfortunately, in the words of the President of the United States. But the optimism about this, we should reflect, I think, more on that, because the brightness of America has been, we've seen it displayed in the past 24 hours. We've seen it displayed, and it's stronger and more powerful than anything that Donald Trump has said thus far.
And it does seem that at least for now, the center can hold. The center is holding, and the center will hold. And Casey Hunt, you're on Capitol Hill. There was concern before Donald Trump decided to show moral equivalency between racists and fascists and anti-racists. But I guess from all reports and from what you're hearing on the Hill right now and what you're hearing from Republicans, it's bleak. They don't know what comes next for the party that a lot of them feel Donald Trump's destroying.
I think that there is a very real private, however, sense of, I don't know if I would go so far as to call it despair, but at the very least, deep confusion and uneasiness with how to proceed with this president. I think that a lot of people on Capitol Hill, look, they care very deeply about this country. That's why they're in politics. And I think a lot of them were hoping that they could wait out President Trump.
Yeah.
But it has gotten so hard in these particular days. I think your point about the center is true. I think the center in the country is deeper and wider than what we have to remember are a fringe of voices, these white supremacists that have been given a megaphone in the media landscape that we are living in now.
And by
that
the
is
president.
bigger, and by the president, exactly. And that, of course, is the difference. George H.W. Bush, for example, in his response to David Duke, stood in that deep, wide center, and this president is off on the side.
Except for a few voices among the Republicans, though. We're not seeing profiles in courage at all. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but follow the lead of corporate America. Corporate America is doing the right thing. I can't believe I'm saying
Corporate
this,
America
but here's
and
where
the
we
military,
are.
and
the
they're
military.
both way ahead. They're both
Hey,
much
guys,
more in tune.
not that hard.
Again,
country is.
yeah, the military, the business
Big
community.
business. Thank you.
Again,
Can you believe I'm
look at Marco Rubio's tweets, look at John McCain's tweets, look at the few Charlie Dent's tweets, look at the few Republicans that have actually spoken out. You've got to say his name in your tweet. Just going racism
Got to
bad.
say no.
Not good enough. You
Put a
have
name
to
on
say
it.
No,
Donald
Mr. President.
Trump cannot continue to provide aid and comfort to neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and fascists, who right now are the only ones in America celebrating Donald Trump.
Do you believe, as
And what he said
as
the other
I
day.
believe, that I think a lot of people believe, that the underlying story here right now is the Republican Party's search for its own conscience?
Well, I mean,
They've got to get
Listen,
rid of a certain element. It's here. Here's the time.
you know, I
Here's the
talked
opportunity.
about Marco Rubio. I saw a tweet, Marco Rubio in February of last year, saying we can't elect a racist. I have retweeted several times throughout this, a column I wrote for the Washington Post in February of 2016, saying this man's using racism to get elected, and talked about him attacking Mexicans, talking about him attacking Muslims, talking about, I mean, everybody knew this. Gene,
right.
in
I've written this 4 or 5 times,
in
you know,
December
I mean,
2015, I said on the set, and I think most of us said on the set, I can never vote for anybody that is pushing a Muslim ban. They knew. And this is what's always bothered me about the Republican Party. They knew that he was using race, but they would criticize him for other things. They wouldn't criticize him during the primary
wouldn't go
for
after
using racism
Right.
to get ahead.
They wouldn't go after
Judge
that.
Curiel.
And
They used
sort of
that. It was
just like-
racist with Judge Curiel. Again, we said it here. The Republicans were like, oh, yeah.
But
This is what it leads to.
Right. They would express their outrage, but not specific outrage. And they sort of pretended that it wasn't there. And then he gets inaugurated, and they kind of pretended it would go away, or that he would become a different person, or that it wouldn't get progressively worse and worse and worse instead of better and better, and which, you know, it seems to be what's happening. At least as far as I can see. I mean, he wasn't in control when he was inaugurated, and he seems to be spinning further out of control.
Yeah, on that note, believe it or not, there's a lot of news to cover this morning. There is another blockbuster interview from a top Trump aide, and once more, there's a question about whether or not the subject intended for it to be on the record. First, there was Anthony Scaramucci and the profanity-laden New Yorker interview.
Have you noticed the
ultimately-
Mooch actually is looking very statesman-like now?
is.
Yes.
Compared to everybody else.
Comparison.
So everybody's making fun of the Mooch. Guess what? The Mooch knew when to hit the eject button.
Right, a couple of
The
weeks
Mooch-
ago,
the
right,
Mooch,
the
you
Mooch
know
was
what
the
he is?
worst that could ever be, and now the Mooch looks not that bad.
Adlai Stevenson.
The Mooch sold low. Or
We
actually
have a
bought
pet
low,
we
sold
named
high.
the Mooch.
Dean
Yeah.
Rusk. You know?
Yeah, the Mooch.
Anyhow.
Starring Dean Rusk. Yeah,
Now-
Dean Rusk. Sorry. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.